I move that we grant the motion to substitute the proper verification as duly attached, and I do so on the following grounds. Number one, the substitution is not prohibited. There is nothing explicitly provided in the rules which provides that any matter of form cannot be corrected. In fact, our rules explicitly provides under Section 4, this is the rules on impeachment proceedings, that if a complaint is found insufficient in form, it shall be returned to the SecGen with 3 session days and with a written explanation of insufficiency. The Secretary General shall return the same to the complainants together with the committee's written explanation within 3 session days from receipt of the committee resolution finding the complaint insufficient in form. Now, the next paragraph, the first sentence says, should the committee find the complaint sufficient in form, it shall then determine if the complaint is sufficient in substance. The same paragraph says that if the committee finds that the complaint is not sufficient in substance, it shall dismiss the complaint and shall submit its report. Accordingly, Mr. Chair, our rules provide that insufficiency of form may be corrected and rectified, and that it is in fact a determination that a complaint is insufficient in both form and substance that results in the dismissal of an impeachment complaint. Now, this construction appears to be consistent with the jurisprudence laid down by our court that mere matters of form may be rectified because technicalities should not be made to trump substantial justice. Now, as you know, I'm one of the endorsers of the complaint, and I did endorse it because I felt that the matters alleged in the complaint involve matters of transcendental importance. It involves the issue of integrity and probity of no less than the chairman of the Commission on Election, which inevitably will affect the integrity of all electoral exercise, which is the most important exercise in any democracy. What are the jurisprudence that I mentioned, which recognizes that matter of forms can be corrected? There's a multitude of cases, but let me quote from some. Zalda versus Zalda. The court said, the court may in fact order the correction of the pleading if verification is lacking, or it may act on the pleading although it may not have been verified, where it is made evident that strict compliance with the rules may be dispensed with so that the ends of justice may be served. Pagadora versus Ilaw. And I quote, it is well settled that the liberal construction of the rules may be invoked in situations where there may be excusable formal deficiency or error in a pleading. Besides, fundamental is the precept that rules of procedure are meant not to thwart, but to facilitate the attainment of justice. Now, we will not argue at this point on the issue of verification as contained originally, but we are arguing now that because the matter of this complaint has been referred by plenary to the committee, it is within now the jurisdiction of this committee to determine whether or not to admit the substitute verification as filed by the complainants. My question now is, since it is not prohibited, since the rules contemplate even that formal defects may be rectified, why should we not allow now the substitution as played by complainants, if only because we need to get to the truth of the allegations as it affects all of us having participated in an electoral exercise, all of us conceivably also in the future, in the immediate future, will still participate in this electoral exercise, underscoring the fact that it is not a domestic squabble that concerns us in this Congress. It is the very integrity of our democracy at stake. And therefore, for all these reasons, Mr. Chair, I move that we admit the substitute verification as submitted by the complainants.
Mr. Chairman.
Objection,
Mr. Chairman.
Objection, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, what is the objection of the...
Mr. Chair, the motion is not yet seconded.
I have seconded.
Objection to the motion, Mr. Chairman.
So,
Objection
let
to the
us hear
motion, Mr.
first
Chairman.
the objections to the motion.
Mr. Chairman.
I also register my objections so that I can be given the time to explain my objections.
This representation also, Mr. Chair, is also registering
Please
its
list
objection.
down the objectors. Go ahead, Congress.
Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues, as the chairman so mentioned earlier, this is the fifth impeachment we have heard so far,
Third, this Congress. This is the third this Congress.
including the Alejandro complaint, the fourth. Fourth, yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, to be true to our previous decisions in the mentioned three previous impeachment complaints, I note the statement of the Honorable Roque, where errors may be corrected, and indeed there is a precedent for that. I bring to the attention of this committee now the impeachment complaint filed against President Noynoy Aquino by Renato Reyes Jr. and the discussion there, which was captured in committee report number 450 on House Resolution 1543, submitted by the Committee on Justice, October 2, 2014. There was an error, likewise, in that impeachment complaint. And may I read from the committee report? Members of the committee debated on the sufficiency in form of the Reyes complaint when Representative Rodolfo Fariñas pointed out that the resolutions of endorsement by Representatives Colmenares, Zarate, Hicap, and Ilagan all read, "Now therefore I hereby resolve to endorse as I hereby endorse the attached verified complaint by Bagong Alyansa Makabayan et al., represented by its Secretary General Renato M. Reyes, and other complainants, and strongly recommend that the same be given due course by the House of Representatives." End quote. Some members, this is the committee report, viewed that the resolutions and consequently the complaint itself were defective since the complaint was filed by Renato M. Reyes Jr., among others, in his personal capacity and not as a representative of Bayan, open parenthesis, in which case a board resolution authorizing Mr. Reyes to represent Bayan as complainant is needed, close parenthesis, as admitted by Mr. Reyes during the meeting. On the other hand, some members of the committee submitted that a simple amendment to the resolutions would suffice in the interest of justice and liberality. The amendment of the after a debate, a motion was made to allow, in the interest of justice and liberality, the amendment of the resolutions of endorsement. With 51 votes in favor, 1 against, and with 4 abstentions, the motion was carried. Thus, the last clause of the resolutions of endorsement by Representatives Colmenares, Zarate, Hicap, and Ilagan were amended. And the committee report goes on. So, dear colleagues, Mr. Chairman, it can be gleaned from this committee report that the voting was carried in favor of an amendment to the error because of liberality. And it has already been stated by our majority leader in the Alejandro complaint, this would be the last time the Committee on Justice would allow for errors in liberality in form. To be true to the Honorable Alejandro, to be true to the other endorsement complaint which we did not pass according to form, we must apply the same standards to this before us. Liberality has been ruled out, and therefore I must object to the motion of the Honorable Roque. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that. We now recognize Deputy Speaker Fred Castro for
Mr.
his
Chairman.
objection.
Honorable Roque has cited several cases in order to underscore his argument that there is no prohibition in the amendment of any complaint insofar as form is concerned. This representation takes exception to the representation of Honorable Harry Roque, because in the Gary Alejano impeachment against the President Rodrigo Duterte, the committee has made it clear in no uncertain terms that admission of a complaint, notwithstanding defect in the verification, in the exercise of liberality, would be the last time. And therefore that caveat or that warning by the committee that for the last time it will entertain impeachment complaint notwithstanding that it is defective in form is itself a clear prohibition that the next time around the committee will no longer entertain any defective impeachment complaint in form. Second, the cases cited by the Honorable Harry Roque refers to cases decided by our courts, by the Supreme Court. But contrary to the decision of the Supreme Court, the rules of court or decision of the Supreme Court could only have suppletory character insofar as impeachment proceeding in these halls of Congress is concerned. Reason, we have our own rulings, in which case decisions of the Supreme Court cannot take precedence over the rulings of the committee or the House of Representatives itself. No less than the case of Alejano versus Rodrigo Duterte underscore this argument, because the ruling in the Alejano versus President Duterte, which takes in the form of stare decisis in this House, has been approved in plenary, not only by the committee, but by the plenary. In effect, while we respect the jurisprudence of the Supreme Court, we respect that as applicable in our courts as primary authority, but only secondary authority insofar as impeachment proceedings decided by the plenary in these halls of Congress. Accordingly, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Majority Leader, this representation on the basis of the argument preferred moves for the dismissal of the complaint.